Hare Krishna. So we are studying the last part of chapter 3 of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. In this chapter, we have seen so far how initially the Purushavataras are introduced as the divine causality, that this creation has a cause and it is a divine cause. So that's from where this chapter starts, by presenting to us the three Purushas and how they create. And then we saw that this world is a field of both freedom and bondage. So it's the jiva's desire for independent enjoyment that is keeping us bound. And if we use our independent free will in the right way, through that, through coming in touch with Shastra, avatars, rishis, and the processes of bhakti, and even the presence of Paramatma to guide us, then that is how we return back to our original spiritual state. So both bondage and freedom are available in this realm. And we also saw that the divine form of the Lord is Vishuddha Sattvam Urjitam. It is pure. It has no material contamination. And we saw that bhakti is a way to perceive the reality. Those who have the eyes, perfect eyes of bhakti, pashyanti ado rupam adabra chakshusha. Adabra chakshusha, purified vision or devotional vision. So this is a means to perceive the divine. And then we discussed about avatars. Avatars are divine descent into our material realm. So we studied the different descents from Lord Krishna, Swayam Rupa of Sri Krishna. Yeah, first the Swayam Prakash, the Vilas, the Prakash forms, then the Vilas forms, yeah, the first and second Chaturvyu, and then the Swamsha forms, under which we saw different categories of Purushavasaras, Leelavataras, Gunavataras, Yugavataras, Manvantara and the last category was Shaktiavesh avatars. Shaktiavesh avatars are not divine themselves, they are jivas who are empowered. Either they have Bhagavad Avesh, which is direct empowerment, or they have indirect empowerment. So we have studied all of this so far, which concluded with the understanding of that yes, these are all different categories of avatars and kala, but Krishna is in none of these categories. Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna is not an avatar. Krishna is not even the source of these avatars. Hmm? Garbhodakshaya Vishnu is the fountainhead of all avatars we saw. So Lord Krishna is a separate category itself. Shri it is. Lord Krishna is Swayam Bhagwan. And so what is our understanding? What is the presentation of divinity in our religion? It is one of unity with personal plurality. They are not, we are not having polytheism. They are not separate competing gods. We have only one Bhagwan, that's the unity. But that one Bhagwan has many eternal manifestations. Yeah. And as manifestations, they are springing from him only. So that is the plurality. So today we'll continue our study from verse 30 and we enter a new part of this discussion of avatars. So on just when you thought that you have covered the entire gamut of understanding the avatars, no, it's not yet complete. There is more. So now in from verse 30, there is a shift that so far, after listing these avatars, we are going to see, okay, if these are the avatars of Sri Krishna, these are his expansions and incarnations, what should not be counted as an avatar? What is not an avatar? That is the focus of the next few verses. Okay, so let's chant. Verse 30. एतद्रूपं भगवतो ह्यरूपस्य चिदात्मनः मायागुणैर्विरचितं महदादिभिरात्मनि. The conception of the Virat universal form of the Lord as appearing in the material world is imaginary. It is to enable the less intelligent and neophytes to adjust to the idea of the Lord's having form. But factually, the Lord has no material form. So, after understanding all the different categories of avatar, now we are trying to see what is not an avatar. What is not an avatar? Virat Roop. Virat Roop is the universal form of the Lord. So, it is important to understand what is Virat. So, here Prabhupada says, when you contemplate on the Lord as being composed of matter, that is called Vishwaroop or Virat Roop. So this Virat Roop is not mentioned in the list of incarnations. Why? Because all the avataras, vistaras, amshas, kalas, all the expansions and incarnations of Sri Krishna we have seen so far, they are all transcendental. They don't have even a trace of material contamination. But Virat is not transcendental. What is Virat Roop? Virat Roop is not absolute or transcendental, Srila Prabhupada is first explaining. Yeah. A transcendental form means there is no difference in the in and out. Everything is absolute in the transcendental realm. So, what is Virat Roop? We'll study in detail in the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, not once but twice. So, for now, we are only trying to understand how Virat Roop is not a part of avatars. So, how do you visualize the Lord when you want to perceive the Lord immediately through your current material senses? If you're not qualified or trained with divine eyes, but you are insisting that I want to visualize the Lord with my current senses in my current state. So then a recommendation is made that, okay, you can perceive or you can visualize of the Lord in form of material manifestation. So different planets, the lower planets are his legs, hands, higher planets are his head. So that kind of description is Virat Roop. And it is for those who are beginners in spiritual life. Yeah. Those who cannot conceive of anything beyond matter. So the material conception of the Lord is not counted in the list of his factual forms. Yeah. So there are factual forms of the Lord, and there is this Virat Roop of the Lord. So this is in a different category. That's what is being said. Yeah. Even Paramatma, see, Paramatma is present in each and every, within each and every material form. But outward material form is an imagination. So when we give a form to the Purusha uh, in terms of material objects, that is uh, considered the Virat Roop. Okay, so now we will see how this form is not transcendental, it is material. Just like we have A body. So our body is a material conception. Similarly, the conclusion is that the material conception of the body of the Lord as Virat is imaginary. It's not real. So, what we are trying to understand is this is a very important clarification that sometimes we describe the universal form as the body of the Lord. The Patal are his feet, the heavens are his head, the Devas are his limbs, and so on. But if the universal form is worshipable, why is it not counted among the avatars like Matsya, Kurma, Varaha? Why not? Because the universal form is only a material representation of the Lord. It is not Lord's Swarupa, not his eternal form. That is the difference between the two. Okay, so in this verse, we are saying that the material universe is a form of the Lord. How is it a form of the Lord? In the sense that it is resting upon Him, it is governed by Him. So the material universe is a form of the Lord, but the Lord Himself is a Rupa. A Rupa does not mean formless in that impersonal sense. A Rupa means it doesn't have a material form here because we are discussing about Virat Rupa. So, although we might give the Lord a material representation for the understanding of the neophytes, it is just a imaginary form. It is meant for helping the beginners. But in reality, the Lord's form is transcendental. It's arupa, means no material form. And it is chidatma. You see the word chidatma here. Chid Atma is of the transcendence. It's Chinmaya. It's full of spirit. There is no presence of anything material. So now let us revise what is the difference between, let's look at this slide to get a better understanding. It's important because sometimes when we see that, oh, the yogis are meditating on the Virat Roop, is it a form of the Lord? No, it is an aid for the beginner yogi to focus their mind on the Lord. So the universal form is a representation. It is not a revelation. Yeah. So Bhagavatam is not saying that universal form is rejected. It is not Bhagwan's true identity. It is not Bhagwan's Swarupa. So universal form is resting upon the Lord, governed by the Lord, but it is not the Lord himself. The Lord is a Rupa, having no material form, whereas the universal form is completely material. And the Lord is Chidatma, pure conscious, spiritual reality. Okay. So this is the difference. Universal form is made up of matter, gunas, mahatattva, and the Pancha Mahabhut, whereas the Krishna's divine form or the form of Krishna's avatars, it's all transcendental. It is made up of Vishuddha Sattva. What is the function of the universal form? It is a teaching aid. It is a visualization for the beginners to get them rooted in meditation. Those who cannot conceive of Lord having a form. How can the Creator have a form? Okay. Start by visualizing this world as His form. Oh, that helps. That helps. But that's just a temporary teaching aid. Sometimes, when you can't perceive the reality, you are given a reference. It's also called Shaka Chandra Nyaya sometimes. That a parent is trying to show the moon to the child. Look at the moon there. So the child says, where? Oh, do you see the tree? Yes. Do you see those branches of the tree? Yes. Between those two branches, you see something shining? Yes, that is the moon. Does it mean that moon is in the tree? No, it is just a aid to help the child perceive the moon. Similarly, Virat Roop is a visualization for beginners. It is not Lord's eternal Swarupa. It's very important. And as we saw, it is not counted among Lord's avatars, whereas Krishna's divine form is the source of avatars who are beyond the laws of karma. Okay, is this clear? So, this is what verse 30 is trying to present to us.
Hare Krishna
And
Prabhu, what about this super soul that is present within the material universe?
do you remember we discussed the Purusha avatars as part of the
Yeah,
Swamsha? So, there, those are
yeah.
that is the Paramatma feature of the Lord. Paramatma is a plenary expansion of the Lord. So we already covered the Paramatma feature in the Purusha avatars.
Oh,
Is that
so no,
is that
I was
okay?
just thinking in terms of it. Yeah, that is correct. I was just thinking that it is in terms it is a part of the material world.
Which one?
Yep, the super soul, like present within our body.
Yes, yes,
It's present in the material world.
correct.
So that is what was I was
Yes,
wondering. Is it how does it becomes only transcendental, even though
Hmm.
it's a part of it has entered into the material world?
That's the whole concept of avatar. Avatar is a divine descent into the material world. So descending into the material world
Oh
does not convert the divine into mundane. So that's what we discussed
no.
in this chart when we saw from the Lord Himself first His Prakash forms, then His Vilas forms, then His Swamsha forms. So here you see the three Purushas, they are the Paramatma. So every expansion and incarnation in this picture is transcendental. Although from here onwards, from Garbhodakshaya Vishnu onwards, they are entering the material world. You see on the left corner, there it's marked the material world. From Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, all these expansions are within the material world, yet they are all transcendental. But in this picture, we don't see Virat Roop. So Virat Roop is not a transcendental incarnation. That's the point. Okay, so
No.
every element in this picture is a transcendental incarnation, except the Shaktiavesh avatars, because Shaktiavesh avatars are jivas. Yeah. So, except for this one category, everyone on this picture is a transcendental expansion or incarnation from Krishna. So, yeah, they are in the material world. That is the whole idea of a descent. Okay.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna
So
Prabhuji.
even I was thinking about this thing when Lord Krishna is fighting in the battle of Kurukshetra. He is hit by arrows and a lot of blood comes out. So
Hmm.
then, how do we say that his body is transcendental?
Correct.
When they say
So,
the blood comes out of him.
yes, that is why first we have to understand the ontology. Which state is the Lord in? And first, when we understand that Lord is in a category of transcendence, and we'll discuss in the coming verses, Atma Maya, Shri Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, I appear in this realm by my internal potency. So, yes, even in the battlefield of Mahabharat, he is covered with dust of the battlefield. His hair is being blown away by the wind. There are marks, there are cuts on his body, there's blood flowing from his body. But that is not material. That, in fact, is the worshipable form for Bhishmadev, Krishna as Parthasarathi. So, this is Krishna performing his Leela. So, if we don't understand what state Krishna is in, we might mistake him to be an ordinary jiva. That is why we are investing our attention and energy in classifying all of these avatars. So yeah, he might do Leela. Doesn't mean he has become material. Avajananti mama modha manusham tanumashritam param bhavam ajananto gyatva bhutadim avyayam. I am avyayam, my body is inexhaustible. But those who have insufficient knowledge, they don't understand how I appear by my Atma Maya. So yes, we need to have a complete understanding of Lord's spiritual nature. Then we will not make a mistake of putting him in the category of Jiva. Okay, that's Leela. So what you're discussing now is Tattva. Once our Tattva is clear, understanding of Tattva is clear, then we can enter Leela. If you do reverse, you start studying, hearing or studying Leelas without an understanding of what is the philosophy behind it, we are bound to make mistakes. So therefore, Bhagavatam systematically takes us from first canto to the 10th canto. So those who interpret the pastimes of the Lord without understanding the nature of the Lord, it's natural that they'll be mistaken. Is that okay? Yeah. Yes, Prabhu, you also had a question?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, yeah, I was thinking about this Virat form, that is a universal form. So, in Bhagavad Gita, this universal form, Krishna himself shows to Arjun. So, so how we can consider that as imaginary? So it is imaginary for neophyte. So here Arjun has been considered a neophyte or what?
Yes, Prabhu. If we study the entire 11th chapter, we will see that towards the end, Sri Krishna says, please show me your Saumya Vapu. I am bewildered by this demonstration of your majesty and opulence. I don't want to behold it anymore. So he acknowledges that this is not a form for my rasa. Please display to me your original two-handed form. So that was to demonstrate to Arjun that how he is divine. It was a demonstration of divinity. So again, it is a visualization. It is not eternal. There's a difference. Like we discussed, you can draw something. A map is not the place. So yeah, to help us understand that you can see how everything is entering my mouth. That is, I know the future. I have already determined the outcome of this war, Arjun. All these warriors are entering my mouth. So I am there, I've already sealed their fate. So Shri Krishna was showing his Virat Roop, his Kala Rupa, to demonstrate to Arjun his powers. But Arjun says, this is not what I want. Please come back to your eternal form. So that's the distinction we are also making. It is a helpful representation, but it is not the eternal original form. That's all we are saying. Okay.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Let's move to the next verse. So here we saw that first in 30th verse, we are presented that that Virat Roop is a representation. It is not transcendental form, and therefore it is not classified along with other avatars. Now, what is the error we make? That is described in the next verse, 31. Let's chant. Yatha nabasi meghaugu renurva parthivo nile evam drashtari drash yatvam aropitam abuddhibihi. A very beautiful example, analogy to understand the previous verse. Clouds and dust are carried by the air, but the less intelligent persons say that the sky is cloudy and the air is dirty. Similarly, they also implant the material bodily conceptions on the spirit self. So it's a very powerful analogy that, when there are clouds in the sky, the clouds may appear to be the sky, but they are not the sky. Similarly, the dust may appear to be the air, but it is not the air. Similarly, the universe may be seen as the Lord, but the universe is not identical with the Lord Himself. Does it make sense? Sometimes when there is a storm, all the dust gets carried in the air. So we think, look, the air is so dirty. It is not dirty, it's just the presence of dust in the air. Dust is not the air, cloud is not the sky. Similarly, the universal form is not identical with the Lord. And here a beautiful concept of drishta. Drishta means the one who is seeing, the seer. Yeah. Who is drishta? Here we see drishta is Krishna, the Lord. He is the controller. Drishya is the seen, the object of perception. Yeah. Who is the drishya? This universe is drishya. It is visible, it is objectifiable, and it is changing. So we are creating two categories of drishya and drishta. Who is seeing and what is being seen? Prakriti or Virat Rupa is being seen. It is the object of perception. And drishta, the Lord, is the seer, the conscious controller. So when we make a mistake, yeah, when the visible is superimposed upon the seer, what is visible? The dust is visible. When you superimpose the dust upon air, that is a mistake. It is done by the unintelligent, abuddhibhi. Those who are unintelligent, they impose the visible upon the seer. Does it make sense? Similarly, only the unintelligent will impose the idea of a material form of Virat Roop on Bhagwan's Swarup. Aropa means superimposition. So when we when we mistake the visible universe for the Lord Himself, that is an error. Okay, it's the error of false attribution. You are imposing something on someone, whereas in reality, it's not them. So Prabhupada gives a beautiful example that, sometimes a person is going in a car and we say, oh, the person is going. Actually, it's the car which is going, and we think we indicate the person is going. Same for the president. The president's motorcade. So, oh, the president is going, but it is just a fleet of cars. So, for a beginner to locate the president, you locate the motorade of the president. That yes, there is the president. For the time being, we identify the car with the president. That's all. The car is not the president. Similarly, the Virat Roop is not Bhagwan or the avatars of Bhagwan. So those who want to see God immediately without necessary qualification are shown first the gigantic material cosmos as the form of the Lord, although the Lord is within and without, the Paramatma feature. Yeah. So we cannot perceive even our soul. So how can we perceive the presence of the Lord, which is much more subtle than our soul? So those who want to see the Lord with their present material eyes or with the material senses are advised to meditate on the gigantic external feature called the Virat Roop. So what is happening here is a error of superimposition. We are mistaking the visible for the seen. Yeah, we are mistaking the drishya for the drishta. Very easy to understand. So we are saying here that, okay, we are not saying the world is mithya, The world is a dependent reality. It is not an independent reality. We have discussed this before. As the energy of the Lord, this world is real, but still it is not the same as his eternal form. Lord's eternal personal form is in a different category. Those are transcendental forms. So we should not make the error of imposing the visible on the seer. This is how we can understand this. So, the same example, the seer, the seen, and the arrow. We cannot impose the cloud or the dust upon the sky or the air. Similarly, we cannot impose the Viratru on the Bhagwan. That is called aropa. To superimpose. The visible is superimposed upon the seer. That is by a buddhi bihi. Okay. So this is the understanding. Yeah, let's continue. Let's move to the next verse. So here in verses 30, 31, and 32, we are distinguishing between two material forms that may be attributed to the Lord. Okay, first we saw the gross universal form that may be wrongly attributed to the Lord. Then the subtle universal form, which is going to be described in verse 32. Sometimes that is also falsely attributed upon the Lord, whereas the Lord has nothing to do with both the gross and the subtle impositions. So, gross universal form, we understand, visualizing this material cosmos as God. But what does it mean to superimpose subtle form? What is the subtle form of the Lord? Subtle universal form that's described in verse 32. Let's chant. Atha param yad avyaktam avyudham gunabrahmitam adrishta shruta vastutvat sajivo yad punarbhavaha. Beyond this gross conception of form is another subtle conception of form, which is without formal shape and is unseen, unheard, and unmanifested. So, yes, there is one Virat Roop, which is the gross universal form, which we saw should not be attributed upon Bhagavan. There is also a subtle universal form, which is unseen, unheard, unmanifest. The living being has his form beyond this subtlety, otherwise, he could not have repeated births. So, we are seeing just like we, the Jiva, have two bodies, the subtle body and the gross body, whereas we, the Jiva, have nothing to do with both of them, either of them. Similarly, Bhagwan and Bhagwan's transcendental avatars have nothing to do with gross universal form or subtle universal form. Yeah, both of them are material upadhis, they are impositions or limiting designations that we cannot put on the Lord. It is just to help the beginner meditate on the divine, but we cannot accept them as Lord's ultimate form. Okay? So just as you know, we have this conception of our spiritual body, beyond the gross and psychic functions, we have our soul. So when we say the soul has left the body, that means both the gross and subtle body, there is something beyond that, and that is the soul that has gone away. We say that the living entity has gone away because he is unseen and unheard. Even when somebody is sleeping, we know that they are still within the body. Why? Because we know that they are still breathing. So when somebody passes away from the body, it does not mean that the soul ceases to exist. Yeah, soul is there beyond the gross and subtle body. Otherwise, what is it that is taking next lives? because the gross body is left behind and the subtle body is Sukshma. So, what is the cause of repeated births is the soul, who is beyond both the gross and subtle bodies. So, what is the conclusion? That the Lord is eternally existent in his transcendental form, which is neither gross nor subtle, like that of a living being. Just like we are not our gross or subtle body, similarly, Bhagwan Swayam Rupa, Bhagwan's avatars are not the gross cosmic manifestation or the subtle cosmic manifestation. All such conception of God's body are imaginary. So, what are we understanding? We are going from the lowest vision to the highest vision. Hmm. So, first of all, we start with the gross vision of seeing the world as independent, disconnected from Lord, like materialists. This world is real, there is no creator. That's the gross vision, that's the lowest form, lowest level of vision. Seeing the world as disconnected matter. Then one step above that is seeing the universe as the body of the Lord. At least we start a connection between the universe and the Lord. In materialism, that's completely disconnected. So from materialism, we come to Virat Root meditation, seeing the universe as Lord's body. It's a beginning level spiritual vision. From there, we go to seeing the Lord beyond gross and subtle matter, which is verse 32. That is a more mature realization. God is beyond gross and subtle material forms. And the highest is to see Atmamaya, Krishna's Swarupal, the Lord's personal name, form, qualities, and pastimes. That is the highest realization, the Bhagavad realization. So here we are seeing that we have to go beyond perceiving the Lord in both gross and subtle material forms. We have to remove those upadhis and then we will reach the Lord. Verse 33 continues. Yatre me sada sadrupe pratishidhita samvida avidyayatmani krite iti tad brahma darshanam. Whenever a person experiences by self-realization that both the gross and subtle bodies have nothing to do with the pure self, at that time he sees himself as well as the Lord. So now we are moving that if we remove all these gross and subtle material impositions, how? By realization, by whenever we experience by self-realization. So by realization, when you keep removing one layer after another of gross and super gross and subtle aropa impositions, what you will reach or what you will uncover is Brahma Darshanam, Brahma Darshan, or Darshan of Brahman, vision of Brahman. So false material impositions disappear and Brahman's true transcendental nature appears. So what are we saying here? That the materially imagined forms are false and one must come to the Lord's real spiritual form. Yeah. So we are rejecting what is called anthropomorphism, that you cannot give a material form to the Lord. That is also the idea of idolatry in many traditions. So we are also agreeing that yes, we cannot impose a material form on the transcendental Lord, but we are not rejecting the divine personality of God also. Projection of matter on God is rejected, but we accept that in ultimate reality, God has a transcendental form, a rupa. So what is Brahma Darshanam? When our vision is purified, so that we are able to remove matter and reach Bhagwan. That is Brahma Darshan. So very systematically, you see how verses from 30 to 33 are leading us from a lower vision to the highest vision of Brahma Darshan. So Srila Prabhupada says that is the difference between self-realization and material illusion. To understand that the gross and subtle bodies are just superficial covering, they are not us. We are not our gross or subtle coverings. We are the soul within. Yeah, it is due to avidya, ignorance, that we identify with the gross and the subtle forms, whereas we actually have nothing to do with it. Similarly, just like these covering are not real for us, similarly, they are not real for Bhagwan also. When you know that convincingly, that is called liberation. Okay, when you adopt godly or spiritual life, then you become indifferent. So, what is spiritual? Spiritual is beyond gross and subtle. When you become indifferent to the needs of your gross and subtle body, you are addressing the needs of the soul. That is called liberation. That is a Jiva Mukta. Even while they are in this body, they have realized their self. They are performing the activities of the self. So, self interest, when we are trapped by avidya, self interest is calculated in terms of our gross and subtle bodies. How are my senses feeling? How is my mind feeling? That we think is our self interest, but we are wrong. Our whole set of activities is spoiled because, our sambandha gyan is corrupted. So, therefore, the process we adopt with that wrong understanding will also be a waste of effort. When we meet the self, when you reach the realization of the self beyond the gross and the subtle, that is self realization. That is Jivan Mukta. Or a person, a liberated person, even in the conditional existence. So we can be liberated even while we are in this world, in these bodies. How? When you are actually able to realize, like Prabhupada says, when you convincingly know that you're not the gross or the subtle body, that is liberation. Okay. So we cannot attain this state by artificial means, but when we take the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, that's coming up in the next verses. Lord says, I'm present in everyone's heart. Tesham evanu kampartham aham ajnana jamatama nashayami atma bhavasto jnanadipena bhasvata. And I'm situated in the heart of all living beings. And when they worship me, surrender to me, what do? I, out of compassion to them, I reveal the way to reach me. So it is Sri Krishna within our own heart who is going to reveal the way forward. We just have to, be sincere and surrender to Him. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvaka. So if you approach me with priti, I reciprocate with dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti. Next is Tesham Evanukampartham Aham Ajnanajamatam Nashayami Atma Bhavasto Jnanadipeno Bhashvata. So this is the way of revelation. So we have to surrender to the Lord. That is the way of understanding the Lord truly. Yeah, when we desire to be the enjoyer, the Lord covers us with avidya. And then in avidya, we mistake ourselves for the gross body or the subtle mind. And when we practice transcendental knowledge, vidya, and we pray to the Lord for deliverance, then the Lord, by His causeless mercy, removes the living being's illusory curtain and thus reveals His own self. And when you get that darshan, the Brahma darshanam, now you know for a fact Who are you? Who is God? What do you do after that? You engage in your eternal dharma of service to the Lord. Okay, so this is the understanding of this verse, that we have to purify our vision so we don't confuse Bhagwan with matter. We understand, we are convinced that Bhagwan can have no material or no gross or subtle material coverings. How do we reach this understanding? Yadi esho parata devi maya vaisharadhimatihi sampanna eveti vidur mahimni swayam mahiyate. If the illusory energy subsides and the living entity becomes fully enriched with knowledge by the grace of the Lord, then he becomes at once enlightened with self realization and thus becomes situated in one's own glory. So, how does Maya withdraw? When, it is said, Uparata, when illusory energy, Devi Maya, Uparata, when the illusory energy subsides, how? By grace. When we receive the grace of the Lord, when we receive the divine favor, then Maya withdraws. So, if we have to reach that state of Brahma Darshana, become purified, become spiritually enriched, it will happen only by the merciful will of the Lord. What is mercy here? What is the divine favor here? That the Lord has His merciful will that let this jiva see me. You cannot force yourself into Brahma Darshana. It has to be sanctioned by the Lord. Yeah, so there is a Upanishadic statement that Yam Evaisha Vrinute Tena Labhyas. I am the Lord is attained by one whom He chooses. So it's entry by invitation only. We cannot just barge our way through tapasya, jnana, or any form of endeavor. So we are not saying that there is no role of sadhana. We are saying that sadhana comes in a broader framework of grace. There is a bigger framework of grace, and within that, there is our sadhana, our human effort, sadhana, that is for purifying our heart. But purifying your heart and revelation of the Lord are not directly related. It is not like a mechanical connection. You purify your heart and the Lord is revealed. We say that, but between that is the Lord's merciful will to be revealed. Yeah. So therefore, this is our true wealth. Sampanna eveti vidur. Sampanna, that is somebody has sampatti. They are called sampanna. So who is truly wealthy? Not one who possesses a lot of learning, power, or status, but one who has the mercy of the Lord. They are actually sampanna. Okay, so what is this? What are the stages to reach Brahma Darshana? Yeah, we go beyond the gross and subtle material forms by realization. That is verse 33. That is Brahma Darshana. So, materially aligned forms are false, both gross and subtle. So, therefore, one must perceive the real spiritual form. It's the same principle, we are looking at it in different ways. So when we say Brahma Darshanam, we are not negating Bhagwan. We are saying that the vision of the seer is becoming purified. The viewer, the seer is not confusing matter with God, is going beyond the gross and the subtle coverings of matter to reach Brahma Darshan, that God is beyond the gross and subtle coverings of matter. Okay. So And we also saw the role of sadhana, that yes, we do our human effort, we purify the heart, but Maya will not withdraw itself because we are putting in effort. Maya will withdraw only when Krishna says so. That is verse 34. By grace of the Lord, the Maya will withdraw. When the Lord says, fine, let this Jiva have my darshan. Okay, so this is the understanding we are talking about. Yes, you have a question?
Yes, Prabhuji. Uh,
Yes.
I, I'm thinking, but it's so silly. But I was thinking that in the Mahavatar Narsimha movie, we see that when Hiranyakashipu expands himself in the three form, means in the expand himself. So I thought that form get revealed in front of him in that movie. We see that the form. So can we get? So can we think that it's a Brahman form?
Yeah, see, the Lord is appearing as an avatar, so he'll be visible to everyone. Sri Krishna was visible to Duryodhan, but could Duryodhan see Krishna as God? It's different. They are, God is present in front of them, but because of their asuri vritti, they are not able to accept Krishna as God. And Krishna says, fine, Naham Prakasha Sarvasva. Sarvasya. I'm not obliged to be revealed to everyone. There is a process, there is a method as we are discussing here. So, yeah, these asuras, they were fortunate to be, killed by the Lord personally. And that is why they attain a eternal destination, because they got killed at the hands of Swayam Bhagwan. But they could not recognize him as Swayam Bhagwan. That is why they were fighting him. So, yes, he might be present in front of them. So, yes, Lord Narasimha is a transcendental form. But Hiranyakashipu's Adabra Chakshu is missing. You remember the verse we discussed? Adabra Chakshu. You also require purified eyes to see those transcendental forms.
Thank you. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So let's continue. Verse 30. Yeah. Let's look at the purport. So the Lord is transcendental. What do we mean by transcendental? Transcendental means absolute. There is no difference between the body and soul for Krishna. It's just everything is Chinmay, spiritual. Krishna's Nam, Roop, Guna, Leela are also absolute. There's one. There is no difference between them. Well, that is called omnipotency. Omnipotency means the Lord has three energies: external, marginal, and internal. Because he is omnipotent, he can transform any of those energy into any other one. He can perform anything and everything through the agency of the above energies. Parasya Shakti Vividhaiva Shruyate. He can turn the external energy into internal by his will. Where is an instance of this, where he's turning his external energy into internal? Yeah, we have studied this somewhere. What is external energy of the Lord? Matter. Where is an instance where he switches the external energy into internal energy? He switches matter to spiritual in our experience.
Mhm. And this is
Yes,
beautiful.
exactly. This comes in Shishopanishad. Archa Vigraha, the Archa form. The Lord is the possessor of both energies. He can say, okay, switch. So can you question him? How can Krishna switch? He is omnipotent, so he can switch. So those who have his grace, for them, the material energy of illusion subsides by the will of the Lord. In terms of repentance and penance for the conditioned soul. So the conditioned soul undergoes repentance that, yeah, I have tried to be an Ishwar, but I recognize I'm not the Ishwar. I am Nitya Krishna Das. and penance, the process of purification of sadhana. And the very same energy then acts to help the purified living entity make progress on the path of self realization. So we should not demonize Maya. In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela, chapter 5, Prabhupada describes in one of the purports that actually there is no difference between the internal and external energies of the Lord. The external energy is the internal energy of the Lord, which is in a contaminated state, in a covered state. So if we have grace, that same Maya, which is trapping all conditioned souls, can help you evolve on the spiritual path. It can become a facilitator for spiritual evolution. And Prabhupada gives this example of electricity. Same electricity can heat or cool depending on which appliance or equipment you use it in. It's a very beautiful way to understand this. So those who are Baddha Jeev, they are not they are not aware of these tattvas that we are discussing. For them, it conditions them. And for those who are favored by the Lord, and of course, there is sadhana and there is the pursuit of sambandha gyan. After that, there is a blessing, there is a mercy of the Lord. So then that potency by the will of the Lord leads the living being to eternal life. It's so beautiful. And when we are having the grace of the Lord, then we are placed in a proper constitutional position. Jiva, our Swarupa. Swarupa Vyavasthiti. And in our Swarupa, we enjoy eternal spiritual life. That's the message. Okay, are we here? Clear? Now, the next set of verses talk about the Janma Karma Chame Divyam. So after understanding the Virat root and differentiating it from the other forms, and seeing how we should not superimpose the what is that? Drishya on the drishta. We should not impose gross or subtle forms on Bhagwan. We should rise in our vision to Bhagavad vision by going beyond gross and subtle matter to Brahma Darshanam, which happens by the grace of the Lord. So after understanding this, we come to concluding with what is an avatar, or it is the philosophy of Avatarvad. Avatar is one who descends but does not fall. Yeah, so the next set of verses are describing Avatarvad. Let's look at that. Evam janmani karmani hi akartura ajannasya cha varnayanti sma kavayo veda guhyani hritpatehe. The learned men describe the birth and activities of the unborn and inactive, which is undiscoverable even in the Vedic literatures. He is the Lord of the heart. So, what are we trying to understand here? That the Lord's Janma and Karma. Evam Janmani Karmani. I am. This is like, there are verses in the Ishopanishad which are in this same spirit, that the Lord cannot be perceived. Tad ejati, tad naijati, tad dure, tad antike, tad antar, tad sarvasya, tad tu sarvasyasya bhahyatah. The Supreme Lord walks and does not walk. He is far away, but he is very near as well. He is within everything, and yet he is outside of everything. So these seemingly contradictory qualities are indicating the omnipotence of the Lord. So here we see that we are coming back to the subject matter of avatars after discussing Virat Roop and how we should focus our lens and reach Brahma Darshanam. We come to the original theme of avatars. How the sages, Here it is said, those who are kavi, the learned, the sages, what are they engaged in? They have definitely reached that state of pure lens, going beyond gross and subtle material forms. Yeah, they have had Brahma Darshanam. What are they doing? The kavi are varnayati sma kavayo. The sages are glorifying the Lord's Janmani and Karmani. So this is the conclusion. Those who have reached that purified state have received that mercy, are doing Kirtanam, Shavanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam. That is, those are the activities of the soul. Yeah, so the Lord is Aja, means he is unborn, yet he appears. He's a Karta. A Karta means inactive, but still he performs activities. And he's not bound by that karma. So we might think, I am also, we cannot say we appear. We are thrown into this world by our past karma. We are pushed into this world. Yeah, because according to our past karma, we are forced by the laws of nature to take a certain birth. Whereas the difference is that the Lord appears according to his own will. The Lord's Janma and Karma are Divya. Janma Karma Chame Divya. That's exactly what this verse is trying to say. So our material body is, body is born and it's destroyed. We act under the gunas. So spiritually, we are the spirit soul. Yes, we are unborn, but we still are materially embodied. But Krishna is eternally unborn. And Krishna is not embodied. We are embodied. Krishna appears by his own will and acts through Leela, not karma. Leela is how he chooses to act. We cannot choose to act. We act what we are. We go through the cycle of karma phala. So we are conditioned. The laws of karma force us to continue our journey in samsara. Okay, so this is the whole understanding of avataras. The Lord is descending into the material world, but he's not fallen. It's not a fall, it's a descent. It's a divine descent. The Lord is acting, but he's not bound. The Lord is appearing in our history, in Mahabharata, in other Leelas, but he is still transcendental. So this is what we have to understand, Avatara Tattva. So both the Jiva and Bhagwan are essentially spiritual. Both are eternal. The difference is the so-called births and disappearances of the Lord are unlike those of the living beings. We appear through the laws of karma, whereas the Lord appears through Atma Maya. Atma Maya means by my internal potency, his Swarupa Shakti. And by meditating on such activities, what does the Lord say in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4? Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tattvata. And if my birth and activities are transcendental, and first he says, Ajopi san avyayatma. I am, same verse. This verse of Bhagavatam is corresponding to the sixth verse of the fourth chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. There the Lord also says, I'm Ajo. Ajo api san avyayatma. I don't deteriorate. My body is not, my form is not exhaustible. I'm unborn. I am the Ishvara. Bhutas are living entities. They are also conscious. I am also conscious, but I am the Ishwar of all those Bhutas. Bhutanam Ishwaropi san. Prakritim swam adhishthaya. I am the supervisor or controller of Prakriti. Sambhavami. How do I appear then? Atmamayaya. Beautiful one verse which encapsulates all of the philosophy. Although I am unborn and my transcendental body never deteriorates, and although I am the Lord of all living entities, I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form. Okay, so we have to remember this. And what is the benefit? Lord is saying, if you remember my Janma and Karma and understand that they are Divya, you will also attain that Divya state. Janma Karma Chame Divya. Evam yo veti tattvataha. So if we understand in Tattva, Lord's Janma and Karma, that they are Divya, we also go beyond the control of the gunas. We also attain a Divya platform. Okay, that is what this verse is saying. Tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti. So Arjun. So one who understands in truth the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not take a material birth again. They come to me. So just knowing the power of knowledge of Krishna's transcendental nature is sufficient to liberate us. That knowledge is liberating. By meditation on such activities, one can attain the realization of Brahman and become liberated from material bondage. Okay. So these are all confidential activities, but the Lord is displaying them. Why? Out of mercy. First of all, He's being merciful, yeah, to help us. And then we question Him, how are you appearing here in our world? Then you also should be like us. He's doing out of mercy, and you're mistaking that mercy and making Him mundane. That's the biggest mistake we conditioned, ignorant jivas can do. Okay, let's look at verse 36. Sava idam vishwa amoga leela shrujati avatyati na sajjate ismin bhuteshu chantarhita atmatantraha shadvargikam jigrahati shadguneshaha. The Lord whose activities are always spotless. Activities means leela. Spotless means among. The Lord whose activities are always spotless is the master of the six senses and is fully omnipotent with the six opulences. He creates the manifested universes, maintains them, and annihilates them without being in the least affected. He is within every living being and is always independent. Yeah, so here we understand the two features of the Lord, which we also are, introduced in chapter 7 and chapter 9 of the Bhagavad Gita, that I am present in everything. That is that I am immanent, but I am also transcendent. I am also transcendental. So I enter everything, but I'm not bound by it. I also have my original transcendental form in my spiritual realm. So Amogha Leela means one whose Leelas are spotless. This is also, described in, again, Ishopanishad, where the Lord is described as being pure. He is antiseptic and prophylactic, both. Just by coming in contact with Him, we can become pure. So, where is the question of Him being contaminated? So, all of these allegations, these are all mistaken understanding. One who properly understands the tattva of the Lord will never find faults. So here, Lord's divine action, Lord's Leela, has a purpose. It is not random. It has a purpose and it is free of any defect. It is spotless. Whereas we, the jivas, our actions are driven by avidya, swartha, abhilasha. So we are completely, contaminated in our conditioned state, but Lord's activities are completely spotless and pure, free from defect. Yeah. So the Lord may contact the sense objects, but he's not controlled by them. He is Shad Gunesha. Guna Isha. He's the Isha, the master or the controller of the six senses or the six opulences. So when we hear Prabhupada is describing, he is transcendental to all material afflictions because he is full with all six opulences. He's the master of the senses. He creates this universe for our welfare, actually, to help, to reclaim the living beings who are suffering here. He is connected with the material creation. How? Very superficially, like fragrance. When air comes in a beautiful orchard, the air becomes aromatic, pleasantly. When the same air goes near filth, it becomes a stain. Yeah. So that's how Lord relates with Prakriti, only superficially, not without being connected. So the air doesn't touch that flower or that garbage. It just, remember we discussed the samipya. Just by proximity, it creates a agitation and Prakriti to begin creation. Yeah. Non-godly elements, therefore, can never approach him despite all endeavors. Okay. We'll just look at a few more verses. They're just in the same theme. न चास्य कश्चन निपुणेन धातुर अवैति जन्तु कुम निश ऊतिः नामानि रूपाणि मनोवचोभिः सन्तन्वतो नटचर्यम् इवाज्ञः. The foolish, with a poor fund of knowledge, cannot know the transcendental nature of the forms, names, and activities of the Lords, who is playing like an actor in a drama. Nor can they express such things, neither in their speculations nor in their words. Okay, I think we can take the rest of the verses in the next session. Yeah, so far we have covered some ground. We have come to the understanding of seeing what is the difference between a material form like Virat Roop and a completely transcendental form. And we have also seen that there is the difference between the Jiva and Bhagwan. Both are conscious, both are eternal, but one is the Ishwar, another is subject to karma. Yeah. So this is the whole understanding of Avatar. And also the beautiful concept of how Lord's pastimes are spotless. Amoga Leela. Lord is in everything, yet he also retains his original transcendental identity. He is immanent within all beings, yet he is perfectly unattached. He's not unattached because of fear. Sometimes we are fearful of our, attachment, therefore we renounce. But that is not the spirit in which Lord renounces. He doesn't renounce because he fears matter. He's unattached to matter because he's complete in himself. That's how he's unattached to matter. He's aloof from money. Okay. And he is Shadgunesha, master of the senses. Any questions or comments? Okay, there was quite a ground we covered today.